Hello, you're watching Daybreak on A News with Bakhtiar Asanov. Let's take a look at top stories shaping today's global agenda. US President Donald Trump warned Iran it has one last chance to reach a deal or face major airstrikes. Russia accuses Ukraine of targeting civilians after saying a drone strike killed 7 people and injured 40 at a busy beach. And the European Union called for stronger border security after thousands of migrants crossed from Morocco into Spain's Ceuta enclave. First, this morning, the United States and Iran are giving conflicting accounts over whether talks are underway. President Donald Trump says diplomacy is continuing, while Tehran denies direct negotiations and says discussions are focused only on the Strait of Hormuz.
US President Donald Trump says he hopes Iran will come to their senses. He says talks were underway despite Tehran denying that direct negotiations were being held. Speaking at the White House, Trump said he wanted to give Iran every last chance before decapitation. He warned Tehran must agree to what he called a good document and repeated that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon.
I'm very proud of the fact that I'll give people a chance. This is a big move. To do an attack that big on a country, I'd rather not do it. Now, we've already, through lots of large attacks, but they were normal large. Hopefully they'll come to their senses, because what happened cannot have a nuclear weapon, but hopefully they'll come to their senses.
Trump said talks were taking place at Iran's request, with Gulf allies involved, and would focus first on reopening the Strait of Hormuz before nuclear issues. But Tehran rejected those claims. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghaei said there are no direct talks with Washington and that Iran's negotiating team remains in the country. He said Tehran is only in discussions with Oman over a temporary navigation arrangement for the Strait of Hormuz, while accusing the United States of violating previous commitments. The dispute comes as shipping through the strait remains below normal levels amid ongoing uncertainty.
Diplomatic efforts between Washington and Tehran appear to be facing new uncertainty, with both sides sending mixed signals over the future of negotiations and the dispute surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. Jaguti Dave has more from Washington.
President Trump says negotiations are on. Iran says they are, but only with Oman. And for that reason, Mr. Trump took to social media calling the Iranians unbelievably duplicitous. Later, in remarks to reporters in the Oval Office, he repeated his claim that Iran begged him to hold off on a major US attack, the biggest since World War II, he said, to give diplomacy another chance. Mr. Trump said the aim of talks with Iran is first to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, suggesting this could happen as soon as Tuesday. He was adamant the US would not let Iran charge tolls through the strait, a position Iranian negotiators have advanced with Oman. Now, after addressing the Strait of Hormuz, Mr. Trump said talks would move to the complete denuclearization of Iran, the reason he claims the US took action against Iran in the first place. President Trump has hit pause on military escalation numerous times since starting the conflict in February. Some critics argue this is further evidence of an erratic administration. Others say it's perhaps a recognition that a pressure campaign might have little effect on Iran, who is banking on the US tiring of the war first by running low on weapons and public goodwill in the run-up to November's midterms. But in his latest remarks, President Trump showed signs of frustration with the Iranians, warning this is their last chance to sign a good document. Jagriti Dave for A News in Washington.
Iran says talks with Oman are strictly bilateral and do not cover control of the Strait of Hormuz, warning that tensions will persist unless Washington lifts its blockade of Iranian ports and honors the ceasefire agreement. Turaj Shirelilo reports from the Iranian Foreign Ministry.
Iran's Foreign Ministry stressed that Tehran is not negotiating with Washington over the control of the Strait of Hormuz, confirming that the ongoing talks with Oman are bilateral. Spokesman Ismail Baghai stressed that there will be no change if the U.S. insists on continuing to blockade Iran's ports and what he called violations of Washington's obligations under the ceasefire Memorandum of Understanding. Speaking at a weekly press conference on Monday, he welcomed China's mediation efforts to de-escalate tension in the region. He said while Tehran appreciates goodwill efforts by the regional and extra-regional countries, Pakistan remains the main channel of mediation. Meanwhile, the official neither confirmed nor rejected reports that Iran is going to receive shoulder-firing ground-to-air launchers from China, as reported in the press last week. He added that Tehran and Beijing have close relations and have signed a pact on strategic cooperation. During the briefing, the spokesman rejected reports that Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi's visit to neighboring Iraq on Monday has an agenda to negotiate regional developments. According to Baghai, the visit is a routine trip to take part in the annual Arba'in morning ritual to pay his respect to the shrine of Imam Hussein in Karbala. Talking about Iran and Ukraine ties after an Iranian commercial ship was hit in the Caspian Sea, Baghai said Kiev's foreign minister claimed the strike was unintentional. However, the spokesman said remarks by other Ukrainian officials suggest that it was not the case, adding that Iran is waiting for further facts to decide on its response. Turaj Shiralilu from Iranian Foreign Ministry for A News.
Britain's economy could face a sharp slowdown if a disruption to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz continues into next year. A new forecast warns that a prolonged closure of the key global trade route would drive up energy costs, fuel inflation, and could even push the UK economy into contraction. Zainab Farizadeh reports.
Britain's economy could shrink in 2027 if the Strait of Hormuz does not reopen to shipping before the middle of next year, according to a new forecast from EY. The accountancy firm's economists say a prolonged disruption to one of the world's most important oil shipping routes will push up oil and gas prices, keeping inflation higher for longer and weighing on economic growth. EY's central forecast assumes the strait reopens within the next couple of months. Under that scenario, the UK economy is still expected to grow over the next 2 years, with inflation reaching a lower peak later this year. However, if the strait remains closed into early or mid-2027, EY predicts UK growth will slow this year before the economy contracts next year. Inflation could climb above 6% by the end of 2026, adding to pressure on households and businesses. EY also expects the Bank of England to keep interest rates on hold for the rest of this year before beginning to cut them next year under its central forecast. The projections are broadly in line with adverse scenarios published by the Bank of England last week, which examined the impact of significantly higher oil and gas prices. Even in that scenario, the bank forecasts the economy would continue to grow next year. Also, inflation would remain elevated. For now, economists say much depends on developments in the Middle East. The longer uncertainty around the Strait of Hormuz continues, the greater the risk that higher energy prices will spill over into the wider economy, affecting everything from transport and manufacturing to household bills. Zainab Farizadeh, A News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
And now to discuss U.S.-Iran diplomacy, we're joined from Washington, D.C. by Dr. Omid Shokri, energy strategist and senior visiting fellow at George Mason University. Dr. Shokri, thank you very much for taking time to join us on the program.
Thanks for having me on this show.
So let me begin with a central question. President Donald Trump says this is Iran's last chance to reach a deal. While Tehran denies negotiations are underway, what does this contradictory messaging tell us about the real state of U.S.-Iran diplomacy?
Yeah, this is a great question. Trump administration trying to use all means to signed some kind of deal before that the upcoming election. As you know, we have the upcoming election by the November, and it's very critical for the Republican to keep their majority in Senate and both Assembly. And due to any continued tension in the region, especially deepened tension in the Strait of Hormuz and bubble mandate, it's not in favor of the U.S. national security and also global energy security as well, due to the Trump administration to do all means, to use all options on the table to pressure on the Tehran to continue diplomacy, to continue direct talk between both sides to reach some kind of deal, as I mentioned before, of the upcoming election. But at the same time, Tehran is aware that the U.S. needs more de-escalation before the election, and trying to use current level of tension, and also using economic disruption, treating free transit in the Strait of Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb, and also trying to continue keeping handle and continue current level of escalation in the region to get more in the upcoming negotiation between Iran and US as well.
Dr. Chokri, in your opinion, is Iran deliberately using the Strait of Hormuz as negotiating leverage? Could Tehran's ability to disrupt shipping give it enough bargaining power to force Washington to reconsider its demands?
It is a reality that Tehran has no more option on the table, just trying to use, as you mentioned, disruption in the Strait of Hormuz and possibly using proxy such as Ansarullah in Yemen for creating the same situation, disruption in the bubble mandate to get more in current talk. And without Iran using this leverage, Iran has no option on the table, and the US will do anything they want in the region. And as you know, we know that we have some kind of coalition against Iran treating the free transit in the Strait of Hormuz. To sum up, Iran has no more options, just trying to escalation in the Strait of Hormuz to get more from the geopolitical benefit from the upcoming talk, and also current level of this talk between Iran and the US, and trying to use this leverage to withdraw the sanction as well, because as you know, during the last 4 days, Iran imposed many sanctions by the US, EU, and the UN as well, and all sanctions forced Iran economy to a deeper energy crisis and economic crisis as well, and Iran trying to use this disruption in the Hormuz to withdraw sanction as well, the left sanction as well.
Dr. Chokri, the United States says it has redirected 44 commercial vessels since reimposing its blockade. How sustainable is this maritime pressure, and can Washington realistically maintain control of shipping around Hormuz without triggering a broader military confrontation?
It is very hard for both Iran and also US to slowly control shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Safety and guaranteed free transit in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran will be able to use the proxy group and also using drone and a missile from central Iran to create insecurity in the Strait of Hormuz and other energy infrastructure in the region as well. And US aware of such situation. And as I mentioned, there is no easy for US or Iran, especially for the US, to keep full authority over the transit shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
Dr. Chokri, how vulnerable is the global oil market right now? If disruption around Hormuz continues for weeks or months, what could we see in terms of oil prices, insurance costs, tanker rates, and inflation?
Yes, if we see the current tension will be continue, and if Iranian energy infrastructure did not hit it by the US, we can see by the next November or December, oil prices is still between 75 to 85. But if Trump administration made the decision to hit at Iran energy infrastructure, and we know that Tehran retaliated and hated GCC energy infrastructure, and also maybe Israel offshore gas fields such as Leviathan and Tamar as well. And also Iran will be hit desalination facility in the GCC. As you know, desalination facility is very critical for daily life and this country's national security as well. In such situation, we can expect that oil price increase by the more than 100 per barrel, and it's against global energy security and global economy as well. well. And as I mentioned, I am not pessimistic about such situation. But after that, the November election, we can expect some deepened tension in the region.
So, in your view, how much economic pain can Iran itself tolerate? Tehran is also dependent on maritime trade and energy revenues. At what point does Iran's strategy of using shipping disruption begin to damage its own economic interests more than those of its adversaries?
During the last 5 decades, the major priority for the Islamic Republic just was deterrence, not, working on the economic growth and the better life for 90 million Iranian people. I think Iranian authorities made a decision to continue such situation because, as I mentioned, at the present, just deterrence is the first and most important priority for them, and trying to do the best to keep such situation. But in the midterm and the long term, Iranian economy will not be able to handle such situation, and we can see some sign of the collapse by the coming year if the current level of tension will continue, and even Iran will not be able to freely sell oil to the global energy market, especially Chinese market, as a major destination for Iranian oil export.
Dr. Shokri, thank you very much for joining us from Washington, D.C. and for sharing your analysis of this rapidly developing situation. We greatly appreciate your time and insights. Thanks a lot. Now to a short break. When we'll return, we'll discuss the rest of the global stories.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption. Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul, for A News.
Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak. Now let's have a look at those global stories. EU ambassadors have held an urgent meeting as the fallout from the deadly border incident in Spain's Ceuta territory continues. At least 72 people died after 60,000 people surged across the border from Morocco into the Spanish enclave last week. Rose Cullen reports.
Well, over the past few days, there's been a real range of reactions from European Union member states about the surge of some 60,000 migrants from Morocco into the Spanish territory of Ceuta, with Italy among the strongest of the reactions, calling for a suspension of the passport-free Schengen travel zone agreement with Spain, Denmark and Finland agreeing with Rome's position. But but we did see a slightly softer reaction from Germany and from France. Here, on one hand, although President Macron did say that Spain should be offered assistance through the EU's border agency Frontex, he also called for a tightening up of security along France's southern border with Spain. On Monday, EU ambassadors met their first chance for serious discussions since the border incident occurred on the 30th of July, and then the focus will move to the meeting between European Union interior ministers, which is scheduled to take place on Tuesday. Ross Cullen, A News, Paris.
Migration is again at the center of debate across the European Union after a mass influx of migrants into Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta.
The European Union has proposed increasing support for Morocco following last week's mass migrant crossings into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU could work with Morocco and Spain to improve early warning systems and provide additional technical and financial assistance to help prevent further irregular crossings. Around 50,000 migrants crossed into Ceuta last week, marking the largest recent influx at one of the EU's two land borders with Africa. The other is the Spanish enclave of Melilla, which also borders Morocco. Morocco said the crossings were driven by misinformation on social media, human trafficking networks, and the misinterpretation of a Spanish court ruling. Most of those who entered Ceuta later returned to Morocco. The incident is the first major test of the EU's Migration Pact, which came into force in June after years of negotiations to establish common migration rules and greater cooperation among member states. Following the surge, 22 of the bloc's 27 member states called for coordinated action to strengthen the EU's external borders, while Italy temporarily suspended passport-free Schengen travel arrangements with Spain for 1 month.
France has criticized Reform UK's proposal to use the Royal Navy to return migrant boats crossing the English Channel, saying the plan would violate French sovereignty and international law. The party says if elected, it would intercept small boats at sea and return migrants to France or Belgium using naval vessels. Reform defended the proposal, saying humanitarian missions do not breach maritime or international law. The UK government has dismissed the plan as unworkable, while opposition parties have also criticized the proposal. Algeria and Italy have agreed to deepen cooperation to tackle irregular migration, migrant smuggling and cross-border crime. Following talks between the interior ministries in Rome on Monday, the two countries will expand collaboration on policing, training and joint operations. Italy praised Algeria's approach to managing migration and combating trafficking networks. The agreement builds on long-standing security cooperation as both countries seek to curb irregular migration across the Mediterranean. Russia's Leningrad region near the St. Petersburg has come on the reported overnight large-scale drone attack. Authorities say a warehouse facility was damaged. Moscow has also blamed Ukraine for a separate strike that it says killed 7 people and injured 40 others in the Black Sea.
A warehouse facility in Russia's Leningrad region sustained damage early Tuesday, following what local authorities described as a large-scale Ukrainian drone attack. The region's governor, Alexander Drozdenko, said on Telegram the damage was recorded at a warehouse complex near the village of Krasny Bor. He added that Russian air defences intercepted 15 unmanned aerial vehicles after aviation security measures were introduced across the region. According to the governor, the warehouse remains operational despite the damage. Ukraine has not immediately commented on the incident. The strike comes amid a series of reported attacks on commercial and logistics infrastructure inside Russia. Warehouses operated by Russian online retailer Wildberries have been targeted multiple times since mid-July. Meanwhile, neighbouring Finland, a member of both the European Union and NATO, announced a temporary aviation restriction area over the eastern Gulf of Finland. Defence forces said the measure was introduced for security reasons, but did not directly link it to the reported drone attacks. The latest developments come as Russia says its forces continue to make gains on the battlefield. On Monday, Russia's defence ministry claimed its troops had captured 2 settlements in the Kharkiv region of northeastern Ukraine. The ministry also said Russia's Black Sea Fleet destroyed an uncrewed surface vessel and that Russian drones struck 4 bulk carriers, allegedly transporting military cargo in support of Ukraine's armed forces. Russian officials also reported that a separate wave of Ukrainian drone attacks on Monday targeted the Vladimir, Belgorod and Krasnodar regions, resulting in multiple casualties. Authorities said 7 people, including 3 children, were killed and 40 others injured in the Black Sea resort city of Gelendzhik on Monday, which Moscow described as a deliberate drone attack on civilians. There was no immediate comment from Kyiv, which, like Moscow, says it does not deliberately target civilians.
Europe is continuing to strengthen its defenses as security concerns reshape military policy across the continent. Denmark has now introduced one of its biggest conscription reforms in decades, expanding compulsory military service, and for the first time bringing women into the draft.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where Denmark starts one of the biggest changes to its military in decades. This as growing security threats reshape defense policy across the Nordic region. Around 1,600 recruits reported for duty under Denmark's new conscription system, which extends mandatory military service from 4 to 11 months. And for the first time, it includes women. Denmark's system requires all healthy 18-year-olds to register for military service, but in practice, the armed forces have relied largely on volunteers, with a lottery used only when there weren't enough people to fill the required places. The reforms are part of a broader effort to strengthen the country's armed forces in response to Russia's war in Ukraine and growing security concerns in the Arctic. And the changes don't stop there. Denmark plans to increase the number of annual conscripts from 5,000 to 7,500 by 2033, while introducing new specialist training, including drone operations, reflecting lessons learned from the war in Ukraine. The timing is particularly significant as Denmark prepares to send conscripts to Greenland for the first time later this month. More than 100 soldiers will spend a month on the Arctic island, taking over operational duties from professional troops. That deployment carries added political weight after U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly renewed his calls for the U.S. to take control of Greenland, arguing the territory is vital to American national security. Denmark and Greenland have firmly rejected those demands, with Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen insisting at last month's NATO summit that Denmark is prepared to defend every inch of Allied territory, including Greenland. Denmark now joins its Nordic neighbors, Sweden, Finland, and Norway, in relying on an expanded conscription system as Europe continues to adapt to a far more uncertain security environment. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
Romania has blown up a rock outcrop in the drought-hit Danube River to redirect vital cooling water towards the country's only operating nuclear reactor. The controlled explosion on Monday cleared the way for a temporary dam near the Senavoda plant, where one of the reactors has already been shut down because of falling river levels. Dacia and Ford have agreed to pause production until the 19th of August to ease pressure on the power grid. In neighboring Hungary, the PAX nuclear plant was operating at just over 10% capacity. All the improved forecast could keep its remaining turbine running until Tuesday. Firefighters across parts of Europe are battling wildfires fueled by intense heat and strong winds. A rare blaze in the Netherlands has forced evacuations of people to safety, while operations continue in Greece.
A large fire that started in the Rosmolen Nature Reserve in Limburg province in the Netherlands quickly spread through the treetops, forcing people at a nearby campsite to flee. At least 21 hectares were burnt. That's around 210,000 square metres. Train services were also suspended. 35 firefighting vehicles and defence helicopters were deployed, with crews arriving from several regions to help contain the blaze.
The challenge with extinguishing the fire is that it is, as far as I'm aware, very high up in the trees. We are, of course, also dealing with wind that is fanning the flames, the fire is moving through the trees, and you have to be able to reach it.
In Greece, more than 400 firefighters and 21 aircraft were tackling a wildfire northwest of Athens for a fourth day on Monday. Strong and erratic winds have driven flames through pine forests and farmland, damaging homes and forcing evacuations of people by land and sea. 2 crew members were killed on Sunday after their firefighting helicopter collided with another aircraft near Psatha. The 2 people aboard the second helicopter survived. Also on Monday, firefighters west of Madrid contained a vegetation fire near a wastewater treatment facility. 5 helicopters and 10 ground crews were deployed, with no injuries or damage to the plant reported. Authorities remain alert for flare-ups as another heatwave approaches. In southern France, a fire that flared up on Friday in the Var region had stabilised by Monday after burning around 1,850 hectares, although officials said it was not yet under control. About 1,500 firefighters remain deployed, supported by waterbombing aircraft. High temperatures and shifting winds could complicate operations, while most evacuation orders had been lifted.
President Donald Trump's latest tariffs are facing a fresh legal challenge, with a coalition of U.S. states suing the administration over the measures. A coalition of 25 Democratic-led states has asked the U.S. court to block tariffs on goods from 60 trading partners. The lawsuit argues the president exceeded his legal authority, alleging the administration used forced labor as a pretext to reimpose tariffs that courts had already ruled illegal. The White House rejects those claims, saying the tax hikes are a lawful response to unfair trade practices and are needed to protect American workers and commerce. Wildfires burning on the outskirts of Spokane in Washington state have forced 64,000 people to evacuate the area to safety after at least 700 buildings have been destroyed. Thousands of acres of land have been burned near the Rocky Mountain foothills near the Idaho border since it began on Saturday.
Tens of thousands of people have been ordered to evacuate the area around Spokane in Washington state after wildfires began 3 days ago. Officials say the number of people ordered to leave their homes has surged from about 4,000 a day to 64,000 by Monday. At least 700 buildings have been destroyed as the cluster of 3 fires have been burning since Saturday. The fires have scorched more than 8,000 acres across the northern fringe of Spokane, home to around 230,000 people near the Idaho border. The Incident Command Center says mostly homes have already been destroyed. Aerial infrared surveys also indicate that possibly another 400 buildings, including homes, have been damaged or destroyed. The emergency comes as dozens of major wildfires continue burning across the drought-parched Pacific Northwest, where air quality has been degraded across a wide region.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has ordered authorities to strengthen support for communities hit by the record-breaking heat wave after the death toll rose to 16. The country recorded its highest temperature in 122 years at 42.5 degrees Celsius in Yangsan, while Seoul received its first ever severe heat wave warning. Officials have expanded cooling shelters, activated emergency power measures, and raised the national heat wave alert. Forecasters warn extreme temperatures and tropical nights are likely to continue across the Korean peninsula. A major cyclosporiasis outbreak in the United States has recorded its first reported death as health officials continue investigating the source of the infection. Authorities in Michigan confirmed 2 deaths linked to the intestinal parasite. The outbreak has spread across at least 9 states, with federal investigators linking cases to iceberg lettuce supplied from private farms in central Mexico and served at Taco Bell restaurants. The product has since been recalled. Health experts say the number of infections has reached record levels, with thousands of confirmed. Colombia has raised the alert level of orange for the Purasi volcano after a sharp increase in volcanic activity, with authorities preparing for the possibility of an eruption. Authorities are urging people to stay away from the upper areas of 3 volcanoes that make up 15 in the Los Cancos volcanic chain. Purasi's activity has reached its highest level since monitoring began in 1993. Gas and ash columns have risen up to 3,400 meters above the summit, while sulfur dioxide emissions and carbon dioxide levels in the soil have also increased.
Necesitamos declarar el estado de alerta naranja.
Palestinians in Gaza say they have seen little change despite renewed efforts to advance a peace deal. Many displaced residents say continued strikes and evacuations have left them with little hope of an end to the war.
For many families in Gaza, promises of a peace agreement have yet to bring any change on the ground. A displaced woman living in a tent in Gaza City says her family fled their home after Israeli forces expanded their presence in the area. Surrounded by rubble, she says people need action, not more statements.
We don't want talk, we want action. We are not seeing anything. Destruction has increased, displacement has increased. The Israeli military has started displacing people, forcing entire neighborhoods to leave their homes and tents and then striking them again.
She says repeated displacement has left families with no sense of security.
The reality we see in front of us is just talk. Nothing is being implemented. We are waiting for death at any moment. We are waiting for displacement at any moment. Our entire lives are gone, our future is gone, and our children's future is gone.
Her comments come as efforts continue to advance a US-backed Gaza peace plan, which calls for Hamas to disarm and for Israeli forces to withdraw in phases. But the agreement faces major obstacles, with Israel insisting Hamas must disarm before further steps are taken, while Hamas is demanding a halt to Israeli operations and a troop withdrawal. Across Gaza, many displaced Palestinians remain in tents or damaged buildings, saying continued violence has deepened uncertainty over whether the deal can bring an end to the war.
Now we have a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss key regional headlines and joined by a guest to dive into those stories.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back and thank you for joining me this morning. Let's return to the region now. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has approved a protocol providing financial assistance to the Embassy of Palestine in Azerbaijan. The protocol was signed in Baku on the 10th of July and will take effect after the completion of required procedures. Azerbaijan's cabinet of ministers will oversee its implementation, while the foreign ministry will notify the Palestinian government. The move follows Aliyev's recent meeting with Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa, where he reaffirmed Baku's support for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. So how does Azerbaijan balance its principled support for Palestine with its strategic partnership with Israel? And could Baku play a more active diplomatic role in the wider Middle East? To discuss this, we're joined from Baku by political analyst Fuad Karimli. Mr. Karimli, welcome to the program and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Karimli, let me begin with the latest development. President Ilham Aliyev has approved the protocol providing financial assistance to the Palestinian embassy in Azerbaijan. What does this decision tell us about the current depth and direction of Azerbaijan-Palestine relations?
Well, we see that in terms of the aid to the Embassy of Palestine in Azerbaijan, this is not something that's a first or a one-off thing. We see that Azerbaijan's humanitarian aid to Palestine has been consistent in the past many years in terms of not just supporting the humanitarian aspect of things, but also building on the diplomatic relationship between the two countries. And we saw that recently Azerbaijan also financed a secondary school in Palestine as well. So this is all part of Azerbaijan's multi-vector foreign policy, trying to balance its relationship with all the regional countries in the Middle East.
Mr. Karimli, Azerbaijan has consistently supported the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, based on relevant UN resolutions and the two-state principle. How central is the Palestinian issue to Azerbaijan's broader foreign policy strategy?
Well, we see that Azerbaijan has always been an ardent supporter of territorial integrity and sovereignty, as we have suffered ourselves of separatist movements, and we have restored the territorial integrity of our own country. So Azerbaijan has always supported the right of Palestinians to coexist in those lands. So it has supported the two-state solution and the right for the Palestinians to stay there and have their own state with the capital in East Jerusalem as well. So it's all part of the bilateral relationship between Azerbaijan and Palestine that has developed since Azerbaijan's independence, but also a part of Azerbaijan trying to balance good relations with all the countries in the Middle East.
So Azerbaijan has used platforms such as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the Non-Aligned Movement to support the Palestinian cause. How important are these multilateral channels to Baku's wider policy of maintaining relationships across different geopolitical blocs?
I would say it's quite important. Azerbaijan has been increasingly stepping up its role in the global south, specifically through its role in the Non-Aligned Movement and, as you said, the Organization of Islamic Countries. These countries are usually underrepresented or do not have as much opportunities as the global north in international decision-making procedures. Azerbaijan has been seen as a champion of these countries in the past few years, especially with its chairmanship of the Non-Aligned Movement recently. So I think it's quite in line with the foreign policy that Azerbaijan has been carrying out for the past few years in supporting multilateral institutions and the right of all countries in these institutions to speak for themselves.
So President Ilham Aliyev has previously said that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict should ultimately be addressed through a two-state solution, while also emphasizing that Arab countries should play a leading role in determining the region's political future. What exactly does this approach tell us about Baku's diplomatic philosophy?
Well, it shows that it's anchored in humanitarian principles. So there are a lot of different views on this conflict from both the Middle East, from the West, from Europe, differing based on the country as well. But I think the main overarching idea is that there are Palestinian people, civilians living there, and they have to be taken care of. They have the right to live and to have that sense of safety. And Azerbaijan has countlessly called for a peaceful end to the conflict, to resolve the conflict and to end it without escalating it. However, we see that there are regional countries that are not aiding in this process. And Azerbaijan, I think, is well positioned in that sense to also host these diplomatic talks as well, as a mediator or as a channel that can facilitate peace talks as well.
In July, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa visited Baku, and the two sides discussed everything from humanitarian assistance and to education and to Palestinian agricultural exports to Azerbaijan. Could we be witnessing an effort to broaden Azerbaijan-Palestine relations beyond political solidarity into a more comprehensive economic partnership?
I think that could be the case, as long as there is stability in the region to actually facilitate these transactions. As you know, these trade requires safe transit routes as well, safe and reliable. So that would be really hard to operationalize during a time of conflict. But in terms of trade, it would also bring economic benefit to the Palestinian people as well. So it would specifically improve the livelihood of the people in that region as well. So it's something that would be really good to see in the future.
Mr. Karimli, at the same time, Azerbaijan maintains exceptionally close relations with Israel, including cooperation in energy, trade, agriculture, water management, and advanced technologies. How does Baku manage what could appear to be two competing diplomatic positions?
When we look at the relationship between Azerbaijan and Israel, it's a long-standing relationship in terms of, as you said, technology and energy as well. But I think Azerbaijan is showing a new school of diplomacy that having relations with one country doesn't necessarily stop you from having good relations with another as well. Even in this case, if they're at war or if they're in a conflict, I think choosing sides has always been a problem in these kinds of conflicts, and Azerbaijan has been really careful in, rather than instigating the conflict and fanning the flames, using its influence on both sides to call for peace is, I think, an optimal position as compared to choosing sides.
Fuat Karimli, political analyst, joining us from Baku. Thank you very much for your analysis and for being with us on the program. We greatly appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
The Black Sea Green Energy Corridor has officially entered its development phase, making a major step towards linking the South Caucasus with Europe through renewable electricity. The move follows government approval of the project's feasibility study by Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania and Hungary. The project centers on a 1,115-kilometer submarine cable between Georgia and Romania with a capacity of 1,300 megawatts. Completion is planned for 2032, strengthening renewable energy links between the South Caucasus and Europe. Turkey has stepped up its response to its recent wildfires, with prosecutors investigating dozens of forest blazes across the country. The authorities say multiple suspects have been arrested. Adam Marol reports from Istanbul.
Turkish Justice Minister Hakan Gürlek says judicial investigations are underway into 44 separate forest fires that have broken out across 16 provinces since the beginning of June. Writing on social media, Gürlek said prosecutors had identified 29 suspects in connection with the blazes. 6 of those suspects have been arrested, he said, while 9 others have been released under judicial control measures. Another 6 remain in custody pending investigation, according to the Justice Minister. Gürlek noted that investigations were being coordinated by the Justice, Interior, and Agriculture ministries, as prosecutors work with the relevant institutions to determine the cause of the fires. He said the Department of Natural Disasters and Accidents, which functions under the Justice Ministry, was closely monitoring each stage of the judicial process. Gürlek said judicial efforts extend beyond crimes against people and property, but also seek to protect the country's forests, natural resources, and what officials describe as Turkey's green homeland. The investigations follow one of the country's most destructive wildfire seasons in years. In recent weeks, extreme heat, low humidity, and strong winds have fueled blazes across large parts of the country, especially in the Aegean and Mediterranean regions. These, in turn, have caused large-scale evacuations, have damaged forests, farmland, and homes, and stretched Turkey's firefighting resources. Last month, 10 people were killed, including forestry workers and rescue personnel, while battling a fast-moving blaze in Eskişehir province, marking the deadliest firefighting incident of the year. Authorities have warned that some fires appear to have been caused by human activity, as prosecutors continue to investigate whether negligence or deliberate acts played a role in the latest outbreaks. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Georgia's only oil refinery says it's making good on its promise and cutting out Russian crude from its supply chain. Nini Nikolaishvili has the details.
Black Sea Petroleum, which operates the Olavi oil refinery, says the Olavi plant received and processed Kazakh crude oil in July and will continue doing so in August. This follows a company statement from early July which said that starting in August or September, the refinery would begin processing crude oil sourced entirely from non-Russian origins. On July 23rd, the Council of the European Union adopted its 21st sanctions package against Russia. That package named the Olavi refinery directly. The first time a third country refinery has been listed under this measure, by the way. It comes with a 6-month transition period and a transaction ban set to take effect on January 25, 2027. Georgian officials have said all of its operations do not contradict sanctions policy and that the government remains ready to cooperate with the EU institutions. According to Black Sea Petroleum, under a supply agreement signed on July 3rd with an international trading company, the refinery will receive Libyan crude oil between August 20th and 30th. The agreement runs through the end of 2027 with an option to extend. At a press briefing on July 24th, the European Commission said Black Sea Petroleum is in active communication with them and that the company steps match the transition timeline. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A News.
The United States is tightening its visa rules as part of efforts to improve immigration compliance. A new policy requires some visitors to pay a refundable security bond before traveling. Sevil Rajapova has more from Tashkent.
The U.S. State Department has announced that from the 3rd of August, visa bonds will become a permanent requirement for citizens of 50 countries applying for B1 business and B2 tourist visas. Under the program, consular officers may require applicants to pay a refundable bond of $10,000, $15,000 or $20,000. The measure is designed to ensure visitors leave the United States before their authorized stay expires. The deposit is returned automatically once the visa holder departs on time or if the entry to the U.S. is denied. The program was first introduced as a pilot in August 2025, before being expanded earlier this year. The list is based primarily on visa overstay rates. Out of the 50 countries, the largest share, 29, are in Africa. In Asia, it covers 8 countries, including Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, while Georgia is the only country from the South Caucasus on the list. The program also includes several Pacific Island nations and 6 countries from Latin America and the Caribbean, including Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. According to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, visa overstays among nationals from countries covered by the program fell from more than 45,000 to fewer than 50 during its first 10 months, although visa issued to those countries also declined by 83%. The announcement follows a separate U.S. proposal to introduce a $100,000 financial bond for certain green card applicants as Washington continues studying immigration and visa compliance measures. Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
That was your latest news update. Thank you for your time and for joining us on Daybreak with Bakhtiar Hassanov.